Thanks for tuning into this special episode of Daddy Issues with Champ and Kingsbury. This is Champ here. I just wanted to give a quick content warning in regards to this episode. September 26, 2019 marks Christopher Kingsbury's 10-year sober-versary from crystal meth, which is fantastic. And we take a lot of time this episode to talk about that. We break down some of the things that led him into that lifestyle, some of the things that kept him in that lifestyle, and how hard it was to get out of that lifestyle. It's an important episode. I feel addiction has impacted both Christopher's and my family and or friend groups. We both have stories about addiction with people we know where things have ended less than happy. Christopher's is a great tale because it does have a happy ending. However, there is some content in this episode that may be triggering to some people. We do talk very openly about his drug use. We have some very graphic, extreme language at some points, and we do recount a domestic abuse. So we just wanted to give a little bit of a heads up. We hope that you stick with this episode. I feel like it's very eye-opening, but it's also it's a good conversation to have with those. And also, if you know someone that uses drugs, or if you do use drugs, please go and pick up a naloxone kit or a Narcan kit. Naloxone, Narcan, it's the same thing. Go to your local pharmacy and ask for it. That shit saves lives. All right, it saves lives, and you should have it. You should have a kit, whether you use drugs or not. So, without further ado, we're going to jump into this episode. We're actually going to start it off with Chris's stand-up bit about being a meth addict, because this episode's not a very funny episode. And so we want to make sure that there's a little bit of levity off the top. So thanks for joining us. Content has been warned. Please pick up a Narcan kit. Hug your children. Love those that sometimes seem to be unlovable because you never know what they're going through. And addiction is a bitch. So, yeah, without further ado, here we go. Oh, also, this is not Minnesota 4. At the start of this episode, you're going to hear us say this is Minnesota 4. This is not Minnesota 4. It's just a special episode.
That's good. So people ask me, why'd you move out here, Chris? I'm like, I was dating somebody. Maybe you heard of her. Her name was Crystal Meth. That bitch was sketchy, and I left immediately. I'm just kidding. I stayed for 7 years. And then But I've been out here now. The 26th of this month will be my 10-year marker of being clean off crystal meth. Yes, clean and sober. No, clean and sober as I drink a beer. That's right. Yeah, no. And when I first moved out here, people were like, "Crystal meth? This is Ottawa. What the fuck is that like?" And I'm all like, "Well, why don't you just go out to Smiths Falls? Fuck, you guys don't know what's going on." Or basically around the corner in this neighborhood. That's cool too. All right. It's synthetic. Slow burn with some of you. Slow burn. Okay, good talk. No, so it's synthetic adrenaline is what it is. Make you feel the highest highs and the lowest lows. And to break it down in kind of a superhero terms, it'll make you feel quick like the Flash, and like you have stamina like Superman, and you have the strength of the Hulk, right? But on the flip side of that coin, you also have the anger management skills of the fucking Hulk, and you're like, I want to smash shit in a fucking prison, right? You got sleeping habits of shitty, sparkly vampires. Like, I never sleep. And for me, I wasn't really feeling happy, right? I was only really happy around Halloween, because when Halloween came around, I had 2 sleeps to go into a Christmas. I'm glad you guys have done enough drugs so that'd be funny. But some of you are like, I didn't do enough drugs so that would be funny.
Minnesota 4!
Minnesota 4!
But released in reverse order to Minnesota 3.
So we're like reverse triloging things.
Yes. We did record Minnesota 3 a few weeks ago, and it's supposed to come out next Sunday, today.
Today.
It's supposed to come out today,
but today's a special anniversary of me.
And on that...
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Today, coming out on the 29th of September, yesterday marked my 10-year anniversary clean from crystal meth and anniversary of living in Ottawa, for that matter. I guess I should have probably led with that.
Wait, how many years?
10 years, man.
10 years. So this is fucking like, we're drinking, of course.
Yeah.
Off the hop, we're drinking.
We've been drinking. That's fine.
And we're drinking to celebrate your sober day.
Yeah. Take that, group with a 12-step program.
You know what? I'm an addictions therapist, and 12 steps had their place, but they're not for everybody.
No, definitely not. 12 steps did not play any part in my recovery. My greatest success came, I think, from realizing back in August of 2009 that I was not doing anything great with my life by remaining in Edmonton and continually chasing the high that I thought was going to happen again.
Was the dragon, right?
Yeah, it's the dragon.
Because you were on meth too,
yeah,
so
it was amphetamines. It was 100% meth.
You were definitely chasing that dragon.
Yeah, and I was not wanting to pay for the dragon anymore, and I realized that the dragon that I had before was the best dragon I was ever going to have. And all dragons after that sucked.
How to Train Your Dragon is really about meth addicts.
Yes, not dragon fucking.
I didn't get that at all from the movie.
That's from the third one.
I saw the dragons fucking, not fucking dragons.
Not fucking dragons. How to Train Your Dragon to lick that peanut butter. No, that's weird.
This Minnesota brought to you by DreamWorks.
Spielberg approved.
So yeah, because this is Chris's 10-year sober-versary from crystal meth, we want to take time to really delve into his story because he's a fantastic dad 10 years later.
Thank you, Joe.
He overcame a whole ton of shit. So that's why we're moving the order around. So Minnesota 4 is coming up before Minnesota 3. We're going to call it Minnesota 4 on the release. I'm sorry. We've been all over the place. We're going to blame the hiatus and having a baby and all that shit.
Yeah, MacBooks like to take vacations, apparently, and then they come back, and it's all good.
Beer.
They drink beer.
So you know what? We'd said that in Minnesota 3 we were drinking Whippersnapper, and because we haven't dropped that yet, Minnesota 4, I'm also drinking Whippersnapper. I'm drinking the Patio Smash Ale. It's delicious. It's really a summer. It's a crisp beer. It's got a little bit of a punch to it, but it's very sweet in the aftertaste.
It is great beer, but I've leaned off the beer a little bit because beer's making me fat, and that's a whole other daddy issue and self-care episode that we're going to have to talk about. But I'm actually sipping on Buffalo Trace bourbon. I have discovered the subtle sympathies and softness of just enjoying chilled, watered-down bourbon in the form of an old-fashioned. And Buffalo Trace is very, very nice and soft, and it's a very good bourbon.
It's funny because I would normally say, and I don't mean to offend you by this, but between the two of us, you're definitely the redneck out of the two of us. And here I am drinking beer out of a can, and you're like, I'm drinking a Manhattan hoity-toity.
This is a snifter of quotes.
I'm going off to do therapy sessions with your clients. Have fun going and building a house, you chump.
No, that's part of the introduction back to booze. When I introduced booze back into my life, it wasn't as fast as I could have it. Maybe it was the fact that I turned 30 and I realized that, hey, this alcohol should have a relative flavor if it's going to also mess me up. And now that I've just discovered certain ways to partake in an alcohol that doesn't involve it tasting like shit.
Now here's something that's kind of cool with you. Is you were a functional addict for many years until it kind of ate away at a whole shit ton more than Like it kind of, and we're going to go into this. We went into this a little bit in our pilot episode, which is going to drop as a bonus episode a little bit later.
Yeah.
How can you, and I'm just curious because I know that some people who are in recovery, they're in recovery from everything. So where does that line come for you? Because like you drink, we'll smoke a joint together from time to time. It's legal in Canada.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where's that line?
That line for me is something that you feel. When the drugs or alcohol take effect, or you start to feel them. For myself, it's like I become more aware of the effects and its onset. I guess that's kind of why I'm sipping bourbon as to just drinking a bunch of beers that will catch up to me.
Okay.
The slower intake, when I do consume with you, it's more of a pull, and then I draw it like a cigar, and then I'll take it into my mouth.
All right, like in the way that you taught Simon how to smoke a cigar.
Yeah.
No, well, you were teaching him how to smoke a joint.
You're teaching him how to smoke a joint
in the way
it's a lot like smoking a cigar.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just take it in and then let the smoke cool down and then bring it to your lungs. Because I also quit smoking in 2012. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So,
cigarettes.
Cigarettes. That was a while back, right after your dad dies of cancer, you kind of look at yourself and you go, what the hell am I doing smoking these death sticks? But it was an odd thing because I didn't smoke cigarettes when I was on methamphetamine.
Okay.
I did not at all. I was just like, I thought they were gross. They smelled horrible. I had quit smoking the first time I had seriously stopped all drugs for a bit. I took a big break. I guess this would be in 2006, and I stopped. It was one of those things. I'm going to quit meth, and I'm going to quit smoking, and then the quit smoking thing stayed, and I was like, I like meth, and it was, at that point where I control the poison you put in your body is what I kind of figured.
Well, everything's moderation. Right?
That's right, exactly, except for moderation.
Except for well, I was going to say everything in moderation except for math.
No, that was one of my biggest things was meth in moderation. Don't get carried away on consuming a lot of it. Okay, cocaine is a little bit interesting. If you've never done any hard drugs, cocaine is definitely you said it right. It hits it when it should be called more.
And we're not advocating you try cocaine.
No,
even though we did have an ad for cocaine a few episodes ago. Episode 2,
yeah. But at the same time, we're not advocating for it. But if you've never tried anything hard, cocaine just wants to make you do more. Amphetamines, when you do them, make you want to do stuff. Make you want to get up and go around and talk.
It makes you proactive, right?
That's right.
Do you ever see Requiem for a Dream?
Yeah, and I've never really agreed with the teeth-grinding old lady on that one.
Well, that was the one I was thinking about. It's when she cleans the house.
We used to actually, an ex of mine used to actually call them cleaning products.
Yeah.
And so we should pick up some more cleaning products. The house is pretty dirty. And she's like, totally. So we would call our dealer and be like, yeah, you got cleaning products? And they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And be like, and then when he would
We're talking about speed.
We're talking about speed.
Yeah.
When he'd come over, we'd be like, we're talking about speed. And she was all like, we just don't want to say, you got a game, or do you have whatever the slang was for it. We just kind of came up with our own slang with it. And well,
it's interesting because I know that your trigger is definitely amphetamines, and I know this because whenever you come to my house, we have a cat. We've talked about this cat on air a few times. The cat sheds like crazy, and you're wildly allergic to cats.
Yeah.
So you need to take an allergy pill, but you can't take half the allergy pills out there. So I went and bought Claritins.
And I was like,
do you want me to start sucking dick for crack again?
First of all, fuck you with the crack comment. Second of all, I never did anything sexually explicit on amphetamines. I never stole for anything. And one of the biggest things I tell people is with people who are like, oh my God, I saw somebody do meth and they lost their mind. They did all this horrible stuff. And I'm all like, yeah, that was an accelerator for that person. I'm going to level with you. That horrible stuff 9 times or 8 times out of 10 was already in that fucking person to begin with. And that accelerant brought that shit to the surface.
Oh, 100%. When we talk about addiction issues, we talk about concurrent disorders because a lot of times mental health is really, really pushed to the brink when substances are brought in. I know for me, I've got a generalized anxiety disorder, and if I go overboard a little bit too much, I feel it, and it really takes an impact on my mental health. And so it's very easy to say that substances influence mental health.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It just, I consider it the catalyst to bring out some of the worst behaviors in people, or as an excuse to bring out those worst behaviors in people. Because, like, if you've listened to episode 4, and this is Minnesota 4, but released in 3 order, 4 says, I need a criminal pardon. Now, there's a reason I need a criminal pardon, because while on amphetamines with an ex, we fought over something that I had done. It was horrible. I cheated on her. And she freaked out, and it caused me to freak out back at her, and then there was an assault charge. And when the cops got there, they asked who this person was, and they separated us both. And, you know, when you have claw marks on your back and she has a bloody nose, they need to know who
did what.
Yeah.
How did this happen? And, you know, it's out, like, drugs is no excuse for what happened.
Let me say meth is a hell of a drug. But when it came down to all of that is that when someone's freaking out and trashing all my worldly belongings, I was going to hit that person when I was fucking drugged up or alcohol or not. You don't trash my shit.
But
now
I was about to say, like you have a different temperament now. You're a very different person than you were when you were on amphetamines. You have a very different relationship with the people in your life. This is like that one incident does not reflect the person that you are today.
No, definitely not. And when that incident occurred, I threw myself at the mercy of better learning and proving myself to the court of law that I was not that person.
Like, this might be too personal, but did you plead guilty?
Yes.
Okay, so like you took responsibility for it. How did that responsibility play out with the relationship?
It was it was like it played out well because the relationship kept going, because I'm not sure if anyone's aware of a criminal code of Canada, but when there's a domestic abuse situation that occurs and the cops are involved, the parties are separated, and then a charge is laid, and then there is a restraining order put against both parties.
But nobody ever follows that.
No, and I thought, honestly, walking home from that initial charge, it was like, man, I'm an asshole. I fucked up on several levels, but I can go home and clean up my shit and put my life back in order and really reflect on what the fuck just happened and why the fuck that just happened. To which I opened the front door, which I thought was locked, and someone was cleaning up everything in the hallway with a big sorry and a fucking puddle of crystal meth ready to go. So I never got that reset time. You know what I mean? It was
like you walked home right back into a drug den.
Yeah, well, I knew my drugs were anyway, because the cops got called and she was in the bathroom. I took all the dope and I fucking hid it. Yeah. And I took all the pipes and I hid everything that would be incriminating. And then I went and I locked the basement door to my roommate's shit. Mm-hmm. And then I went and sat on the front step.
And you just waited for them.
And I just waited for them. Yeah.
Well, and then you took the responsibility. You went home. You were planning on changing, kind of cleaning up some of your lifestyle. You walk right back into a meth den.
To the ex and her like best friend, and being like whose best friend who has also had violence issues in her own relationships, and just them cleaning everything up, and I felt at that time kind of robbed by it. But anyway, it played out for what it needed to play out. But
because this assault charge was a long time ago.
June 8th, 2008.
2008. Okay. Your change...
2007.
2007, okay.
Yeah.
So it was a year and a half later that you fucking decided that you needed to quit. So what happened between that year and a half? Because for a lot of people, getting involved in the criminal justice system is their rock bottom. Right? Kind of, and you know, like you gotten, like, what was your charge? Like, it wasn't an assault charge, but like, what was the sentence handed down to you?
When sentencing came 6 months later in December, it was a 6-month probationary period, because going into it, the judge and my significant other at the time had actually explained the whole story to victim services, whereas in fact victim services is not inclined to believe the victim whatsoever. It was only after the third breach of recognizance that this whole story was told in a factual manner to the Crown, and that actually had the no restraint order lifted. And then when it appeared into court itself, the Crown said, well, the heart wants what the heart wants, and it is clear to me and to the Crown that you have shown that this was a mistake, because I had, even previously to pleading guilty, I had registered for several courses. One was anger management.
Okay.
Learning how to express your feelings. I statements.
I feel statements.
I feel statements.
I feel statements rather than the you. The I feel statement.
You did this. It's I. It takes full control.
It takes full control, and it takes it away from being an accusation. Right?
That's right. I feel that this happened, and it made...
I feel sad, right? Because it's an emotion. I feel happy. I feel upset. I feel frustrated. So they understand how you feel.
You bring it
not
on.
I feel that this has happened, because that's not a feeling.
I feel that this has happened and it has made me feel this way.
Yes.
Like
I feel this way because I observe that this has happened. And it takes away the onus from the accused.
And brings it towards you.
Brings it back to you, so that way they can understand what's going on.
Yeah, the other course that I enrolled immediately upon was something called Changing Ways. And Changing Ways is a proactive, ongoing course for anybody who involves themselves into it, and it's for abusers and domestic abusers specifically, and focus on their energy to change ways.
Okay, were there any lessons that came out of that stuck with you?
Yeah, the lessons that came out of me that stuck with that is that, again, I'm responsible for me, first of all. And the next one that came out is that it's all learned behaviors, guys. It's learned behaviors out there. You don't... All your reactions, all these emotions, all this negative and abuse towards men, and the fucking... the patriarchy is a thing. It's a learned behavior. You don't have to learn it anymore. You don't have to buy into that. What you're being sold.
I don't think it's being sold as much as it used to be.
No, not anymore. For sure, it's come down huge, but that mentality still is out there. Mm-hmm. It's just because we've fought an open war on it doesn't mean the battle's won.
That's fair.
Like it's one thing they instilled upon that course is that it's a constant learning, and it's constant changing, and it's constant mentoring. Mm-hmm. To the other people, which is a certain section that I fell behind with that course, because I couldn't feel I could ever connect with any of these gentlemen in this course or any of this type of mentality. I guess maybe that's really elitist of me, but like I couldn't. I wasn't cut from their cloth. I felt so I didn't feel. You
felt that the power dynamic was off.
Bingo.
That either like they had more clout than you, or vice versa.
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily a clout. I'm not sure we'd give you a clout, but it would just be like, how can I? We've all been in this abusive domestic situation, but I guess, for my own self detriment, took it upon myself that like my situation was different than anybody else's.
Okay. You thought that you were unique and special?
And there was a certain way, because I was still with the significant other at the time in this group. None of these gentlemen were with their significant other. Okay.
And where it might have been more of a historical thing for them, this was live action. This is the one and only time it's ever happened in your life.
Yeah, exactly. There was reoccurring themes for these guys in their relationships, like their some of them had like 2 assault charges and 1 from previous relationships, and then others had like crappy relationships for sure through their whole period. And one of the biggest things that came out of those courses was my reflection to be like, know the Jedi code. Some saying in Latin, know thyself. Yeah. Right? And face the mirror. Look back.
So kind of like speaking about these courses, I used to work for the Salvation Army as a program coordinator in their corrections department. Yeah. And there was a handful of months where I ran John School. Do you know what John School is?
Yeah, it's for when they pick up
when the cops
get busted.
Not the sex workers, the Johns.
The Johns, yeah, it's John.
Yeah, the Johns. So the Johns are coming, and these are guys that like it's their first offense picking up a sex worker, and they have to pay $500 to come. They have to give their driver's license when they get there, so they don't take off before the end. and then it's like this educational 4-hour session.
Look at how you're exploiting these girls. Yeah.
All the time I worked there and ran this school, and by running it, I really just sat there and signed people in, signed people out, because really the cops were the ones that did all the speaking. I just kind of was, this was a Salvation Army program, and I was the Salvation Army program coordinator, so I was there.
You were there, yeah.
The only time, like, the big things that kept coming out was, we need to fucking decriminalize this, because like 100%. They would bring in sex workers and they would be talking about how their safety was at risk, and like, you know, car tricks are pulling up and then beating the shit out of them or robbing them, and I'm like, this wouldn't happen if you could fucking have protection and pay for the, like, and I get that there's a bunch of different levels of sex work, and this is why I want to bring it back, and this is why I brought it up, is because when you were in Edmonton, I hope you're okay with me sharing this, you were dating a sex worker.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
Yeah,
and that was a big part of your addiction and the story, because you guys were using together. And we see there's different levels of sex work, where there's the street level sex worker versus more like the escort versus the internet models.
Not only that,
sugar babies, sugar daddies.
That's what GFE is a different part. Like, there's many levels of sex work, and none of it should be a shame, because it's all of our body's natural urges. And yes, I was fully in love with a sex worker at the time.
This was like around, like, this was the partner, right?
This was the partner that I have the assault charge for and everything. And it's a job, guys. And like, Australia in 1998 realized that they were facing like 3 super huge crises to their infrastructure. And one was illegal human trafficking, 2 was the spread of disease, and then 3, the biggest one, I don't know why I mentioned it last and said 3 to it, but was the abuse of women and sex workers. And so what they decided to do was legalize sex work across the thing, and then the province of Victoria actually has a site called RED. Yeah.
It's their red light district.
It's their red light district page, and it basically gives contact info and a set of guidelines towards sex work that covers everything from what street workers need to be aware of to what minimum charging for services include. Not maximum, because you can never set a maximum on what somebody's going to charge a service, just like in contracting work, right? But here's the bare minimum for these services in this time in that you need to charge.
Well, and there's like safety precautions in the rooms and the buildings, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, because they usually work out of brothels or bordellos.
Yeah, or massage studios.
Massage studios, parlors,
And don't kid yourself, massage studios have cameras in every hallway. They don't have them in the rooms, but they have them in every hallway, foyer, laundry, and ATM.
You go in there, you're definitely
on camera. And it's not for exploitation, because exploitation isn't sex work. That's someone being terrible. We're just saying that they're there for their safety and your safety too, even. Like, what if somebody came in and tried to rob you or something?
Yeah. Or,
whatever. Who knows, right? They're there for the who knows. And, so sex work is definitely 100% should be decriminalized. Yeah. And that's a human being.
So I was raised, we've talked about this a little bit, I was raised very religiously, and I went to Bible college for a while. During about 2005 to 2008, I used to write movie reviews for a Christian teenage website called Send the Fire. I don't think they exist anymore.
Let's hope not.
But they sent me a screener for this movie from Australia that was done by a Christian organization that was all about how the legalization of sex work in Australia had led to the bigger sex, like trafficking and importing into their country. And I remember watching it and being like, this is a lot of propaganda. And like, even though I was like super like Christian-y at the time, and like I was like really like kind of buying those messages, but then it was like, I kind of like wrote this like really kind of like lukewarm review where I was like, you know what, this is like shill of a movie. It's definitely all preaching and stuff like that. And then they refused to publish it because the movie had sent them the studio's like, oh, we'd love you to review it. They were the ones that reached out and they're like, we don't want to lose like any faith with the studio, so we're not going to publish your review. And then
Champ had cancel country.
Then the editor went and wrote this like 5-star review that pretty much gave it a blowjob, and I was like, fuck you guys.
Which he paid for, incidentally. So stop worrying about sex work.
Okay,
that's weird.
Back to you though. This is like a little tangent. When you were dating the sex worker, I know this was a very big relationship to you. that was also a huge fueling part of your drug life, though, right? Because there was drugs involved in that line of work.
Yeah, she had never initially even done drugs. When we met, she was a sex worker who was not on drugs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 100%. She had not. And then she watched me for like 2.5 months, and she saw how, almost 3 to 4 months, she watched me and my routine and how I was on amphetamines and how I acted and how I did before she even made the conscious decision to be like, okay, I want to try that. Mm-hmm. And when she said, "You want to try that?" I'm like, "Are you sure?" Like, yeah, I'm not going to say no because it's your choice, but like, I don't think you should. She's like, "Well, I at least want to try it once to know what was going on." Mm-hmm. And she tried it once, and then there was like about a week period where she was like, "I'm not trying anymore." And then she was like, "No, that was good. Yeah, okay, I'll try that again." And then it was like we were in for a penny, in for a pound.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did she get clean?
I don't think so.
No?
No. I would like to think so, but...
Is that tough to talk about?
Yeah, because I don't know 100%. I don't know 100%, but the force tells me probably not.
Okay.
The force tells me no. But...
Do you think she's still in Edmonton?
Oh, I know she's still in Edmonton. Yeah, okay. We have a periodic contact with each other when certain dates will show up on our timelines.
Is it friendly?
Yeah, it's totally amicable and it's totally friendly. It's not all those harsh feelings of how the relationship unfolded after that was water under the bridge a long time ago. Like, you know what I mean? That water from the North Saskatchewan reached the freaking bay a long time ago and froze. You know what I
So
mean?
what you chose to leave not chose to leave, like, you did chose to leave, but, like, things started changing a year after this assault charge came into play. A year and a bit.
Yeah, a year and a bit.
What was the catalyst there?
The catalyst for me was that because I had no other primary source of income than being her driver, main support person, person who counselor when they come out of calls, not necessarily offering pro or any sort of advice, but like hearing what the call was, just having them say it out loud gets it off their chest. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? So they don't have to internalize it, and that helps in a way to preserve their humanity.
Okay.
I guess that would be what it was. So I was her primary driver for the entire time she got into escort to when I left her. And so when my input about how this job should be run and who we were working for was kind of put on the back burner.
Because she was agency?
Yes, okay. She was agency, and the person running the agency was being a horrible human being. And I won't even get into those details because it just infuriated me. And I, being a little bit older than Shannon, was like, well, we can do these things proactively to, like, not get ripped off from this lady and not get ripped off. And we should have these things for drivers, and we should have these things. And
but a lot of that comes with the decriminalization of sex work.
100%.
Right?
There should be a set of rules let out. You know what I mean? Like guidelines and things like that.
To keep everybody safe.
That's it. That's a human fucking being. Yeah. End of the line.
God-given right just to be alive.
That's it. 100%. And it was shortly after one of her close friends in escorting was murdered on the 30th of June of 2008.
Oh, shit.
That it didn't infect it. It affected us immediately because we were like, oh my God, how could this happen on a call? And there were so many things that went wrong on that call, and there were so many things that the driver did wrong because she wasn't even working for our agency at that time. Yeah. She was working for another agency because the agency we were working for had ripped her off, and she was like, fuck you, I'm going to work for somebody else. And when she went to work for somebody else, she was killed a block and a half away from the old agency.
Oh, shit. It's like, it's the west coast of Canada, and like, I used to live in Vancouver, but like, when we hear a lot about like missing and murdered women, Indigenous or just sex workers
in general,
we hear it coming from Alberta, we hear it coming from BC, we hear it coming from like all of those areas that are, you know, super. Like, I hate to say this, but like you've got the Bible Belt of Canada, right? And you got these super repressed individuals that are doing gross, inhumane things to human beings, and they're justifying it by by giving them money.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking about sex. We're talking about things that go beyond that.
Yeah, or basically they don't see that person as a human being, and again, it goes back to the course that I took. That's a learned behavior.
So learned behavior. Well, also there's that idea of like, I've paid money for this, so you are what I want you to be, right?
Yeah, there's 100% of those, like calls and stuff like that. You can always tell what kind of a human being a person is, or you can always tell what kind of a man is, but how he treats a sex worker. 100%. If you treat that person like, my God, this is an important service. If you treat that like a contractor, this person can do something that you have never been able to conceivably do in your mind. That's how you should be fucking treating that person. Not just sitting around on your thumbs like, oh my God, I'm paying for the service. This is the service I want. Why don't I get that? Because maybe sometimes that person doesn't provide that fucking service. And it doesn't mean every person is going to provide that service. I'm a contractor. I don't fucking do plumbing. But I don't think plumbing is some fucking immoral thing that I want to kill every fucking plumber out there.
Here's the thing, though, is counterpoint, we're comedians and we hate improv. Fuck improv.
Truth.
I know that this episode has been a barrel of laughs so far.
Yeah, I'm sure it's super awesome.
I need to pause this for 30 seconds because I need to go to the urination station.
30-second pause.
All right, we'll be right back.
No rock, no talk, no information for useless banter. We're your station. We're back.
I feel so much better.
He feels at least a pound lighter of water, for sure.
Woo! We've been recording for a long time today. You know, I know that this sounds like just like a minute, but we've done our intro and our outro for our last episode. We've done a few ads. So, you know, it's
good. We're settling down to a nice pace, and we're talking some talk. Often these conversations especially the conversation we're having right now, is a conversation that I don't ever normally share.
Well, yeah, it's a conversation that's steeped in shame.
I'm not ashamed of it. I just don't feel a lot of people can know what the Matrix is. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, I could give them a pill and they could take the pill, but will they accept the pill? And often I don't think a lot of people are ready for the pill. And maybe that has to change. I think maybe people...
What is the pill?
The truth about what sex work is and the truth about what my past was.
So, like, the truth about you, your truth.
Yeah.
Because, like, your truth has included sex work, it's included substance abuse, it's included trips through the criminal justice system, it's included a full path to recovery, and now a family, fucking business that you own and run. A comedy career.
It's still being run.
A comedy, a successful podcast that tens of people listen to.
Tens. Man, it's like an audience in a basement that I appreciate that they all listen to.
Thank you, Indiana.
And California, Sweden, Finland, Chile.
No, there's no Finland.
Chile?
Sweden.
Oh, Sweden. I was just trying to go...
Yeah, I know what you're doing. Here's the thing, is like, I've got like friends in the UK. I've got a bunch of friends in Australia.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck you guys.
Way to not be here, assholes.
No, don't worry. They'll be like, at one point, they'll be like, hey, I knew that guy once, and it'll likely be because I've been arrested for some bullshit.
Which we will make sure Champ never has a criminal record. So, getting back to kind of how that all fell apart. I want to know where the change came from. Actually, before we get to the change, we've talked a lot about the middle part. Right.
How did you start using crystal meth?
Oh, I first used crystal meth when I was around 23. 23, yeah.
Did you use other drugs before then?
Yeah, I was I had used lots of drugs before that. Heavy marijuana user, hash, obviously, mushrooms whenever you can get them in season. I had done several trips on LSD.
So you're a psychedelics guy?
Yeah, leaned heavy into it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think maybe some of the appeal that came with crystal meth was that it was like the exact opposite of like easygoing, do nothing pot. It was almost, maybe hindsight, I should have just been like, do less pot and more things, instead of being like, this is completely opposite of weed and I love it, and just give her, right?
It's hard to do moderation with
the opposite.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
You're
from my
oh
own
my
experience,
God, yeah.
it's like one time is always one time too many, because like you just overdo it somehow and go 100 miles an hour.
Your mind will make the excuse to keep using it.
And then you crash hard, and that's where it is. It's the crash. The crash is where you're like, I need to use again.
Yeah, for sure, because I feel so horrible. Either I don't want to feel this again, or that the only way I'm ever going to feel how awesome I felt that way again, and I need to feel it fast, is with that drug.
Goes back to that idea of chasing the dragon, how we started talking, right?
Yeah. Hatch that egg, chase that puddle.
You're 23 years old.
Yep.
Crystal meth.
Crystal meth. I was working at a bar at the time, and with my assistant kitchen manager, we were all drinking heavily, smoking some weed, and he's like, let's go back to my place. And we were drinking and smoking some more weed there and starting to play Crash Team Racing. Yeah, so it was super awesome. Right? Lame. And then, like, I was on the nod. I'm like, this is on the nod. How are you guys still awake? He's like, well, we've got something you can try. And I'm like, what is it? And they're like, crystal meth. I'm like, I have never heard of that drug, which is pretty crazy because I've heard a lot of drugs at that point in time.
No, were they railing it or were they smoking it?
Smoking it.
Okay.
Yeah. We were smoking, and they were smoking off of a busted-ass light bulb off of... yeah, I know. It was super savage. It wasn't until a couple months later that they actually discovered, like, oh, those weed oil pipes are actually crystal meth pipes, right? Because when amphetamines are smoked, it starts in a solid state, but when you get it to a certain temperature, it starts to evaporate and become a smoke, and that's how you smoke crystal meth, right? So
most of us have seen Breaking Bad.
Right, I never watched that. Fuck that show.
I imagine that would be quite traumatic for you.
When I was still using, I watched the first 3 episodes. I'm like, oh, this is some pretty cool drama, and then I left Alberta and was like, nah, I ain't gonna do that
Nope.
anymore. I'm like, good, no. And people are like, why haven't you watched it? And I'm like, I smoked crystal meth and was a functional addict for like, 7-8 years. I don't need that shit in my life. I even had one friend who'd be like, he was playing devil's advocate a couple of years back, and the memory came up on my timeline because my official status was, people ask me if I've seen Breaking Bad, and I'm like, fuck that, I won't watch the show. I lived it. And then thanks for asking though. Maybe I'll get to it one day. And then John was playing devil's advocate, just being like, "Oh, you shouldn't write off a show and personal tragedy, blah blah." He was just trying to get me to expand things. And then he was like, "I'm like, would you ask a war veteran to go, sit through Saving Private Ryan?" And he's like, "Are you comparing yourself to a war veteran?" And I'm like, "I fought a different battle."
You fought a battle
for sure.
A lot of war veterans also ended up fighting your battle.
Anyway, point being, it was just like, I know he was being a dick, and I got a bunch of inbox messages like, why don't you just pump this guy as a friend? I'm like, no, because I know what he was trying to do, and he was trying to say that piece of art is a good written piece of art and enjoy it. He's also a film anthropologist, and now he teaches for school, but anyway.
And the thing is, I look at it and go, it was brilliant television. The movie comes out in October on Netflix. Yeah, right. They've shot a movie. If you didn't know that, a Breaking Bad sequel movie comes out in October on Netflix. Netflix, you owe us money now.
That's right. 12 waffles. Good luck against Disney.
Yeah, this thing is Disney Plus comes out in November. Bye-bye Netflix.
No, I think Netflix will stay around because they got a lot of...
Well, I mean, for me.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I've got Amazon Prime is better than Netflix.
Oh, really?
Crave is better than Netflix. Fucking television, cable is better than Netflix these days. So
back to the first usage of anything like that. I had an uncle, basically, I told that story to one of my uncles, and what they wanted to hear was, so pot was the gateway drug. And I don't necessarily...
Oh, fuck that bullshit.
No, because I was always...
Fuck that shit.
I was drunk and high already. I think I said to them that the gateway for me was the fact I wanted to do more drugs. My gateway was open, and I was just letting that thing on my highway. And my auntie was like... how do you become addicted to something like that? I'm like, I don't know. How does one become addicted to shoes? And I just kind of put it back on her, right? Like, you can be an addict for anything.
Well, we're all addicted to shit, right?
That's right.
We're all addicted to sugar.
100%.
We're all addicted to fucking screens.
Yep.
Like, we've got addictions in our lives. So how do we become addicted to it? We used it.
That's right. The dopamine
we got the
brain,
dopamine,
fucking,
the serotonin, and the dopamine are fucking. And
hey, you try fucking with that shit with a little bit of amphetamine, and serotonin, and dopamine. Oh, my God.
Weed as a gateway drug is bullshit because, when we get together, we usually smoke a joint before we do anything together.
Yep.
How many times have I then busted out a crack pipe?
Zero
times. Zero times?
How many times have I wanted to go fucking downtown and fucking find amphetamines as fast as we can?
Zero.
None.
You've actually, and here's the thing is, I know we already talked about the allergy medication.
Yeah.
But like, your willpower is intense. Because like the thing is like the fact that you know your limits now and you're able to say like, if I take a Claritin, because
I'm not going to be sleeping.
Exactly. When we recorded that episode with Rodney Ramsey, it's fair. He says it in the podcast. At the end of the podcast, he goes, "I'm too high to be able to have this conversation." We passed a joint around during our conversation because you came over. The only allergy pills I had were stimulants, and you're like, "I need something to wear this edge off." And so I was like, "All right, I'll roll a few joints. We'll go down to the basement. We'll just kind of like we'll record, and we'll be able to keep your edge off."
It worked.
It worked. It worked.
I was quiet for a bit because I was so high, but I was also
so was Rodney, right?
So was Rodney. yeah.
Matthew was the only sober one here, and he can't have a conversation with himself.
Sober in air quotes. It's sober enough for Matthew. But
I understand. I understand.
Yeah, no. Know your limit. Play within it. Isn't just a fucking Ontario gaming board.
No, I would say I say that to clients all the time. When it comes down to the things when we're talking about moderation, I'm like, you have to know your limit, and you have to drink within it, or you have to smoke within it, right?
Yeah.
If you're drinking outside of your limit, and like we drink beer on the podcast.
Yep.
I drink beer every once in a while in the evening. I still fucking talk to my therapist about it.
Yeah.
Like I'm like I just need to check in, and she's like, well, how many beers have you had this week? I'm like, I don't know, like maybe like 10 throughout 7 days, and she's like, okay. Do you feel like that's a lot? I'm like, well, I'm not getting drunk. And like, we have this conversation back and forth where I'm like, I know that it's not abuse, but at the same time, I always have to check in because the people that are going to notice it first are not you. It's not going to be the user.
No, definitely never is.
Because for the user, it feels normal.
Yeah.
For the user, this is just their normal life. So
and the more you consume, the more normal moves around.
Did anybody like draw red flags to your attention and go, hey, Chris, man, you gotta fucking do something?
Yeah, a couple points early in, like, I think any person who's tried to, like, quit amphetamines on any sort of, or any stimulant or any addiction on certain times, you're going to have relapses. You're going to have, like, oh, I went for a while, and then all of a sudden it falls. And it was probably around the second fall that my brother was like, you know...
Which brother, can I ask?
Carl.
Carl, okay.
Middle brother.
Carl and I are friends on Facebook. Shout out to Carl Kingsbury. I've never met you. I did buy weed from your other brother.
Carl's 2 years younger than me, and when I was like 25, I had one of those fall downs. He was 23 and a dad, and just like, oh, it's foam.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. What did we learn this week? Make sure you have your fucking safety glasses on when you have foam.
I just pointed at his forehead because he had like a thing sticking out of his forehead and it looked like it was skin colored. I was like, when the fuck did you grow a skin tag? But it's just fun. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take this away from your Carl moment.
No,
Go back to it.
Carl, I had a real fall down moment before Shannon, before, but in between.
I'm not editing the Minnesotes. I'm sorry. Like you say it's in it.
Yeah, it's cool. After Heather, but before Shannon, I had a real down spiral of like, wish I was a better person and ended this relationship before people got super seriously hurt. Mm-hmm. And I, instead of, crying or like talking about it, I was just like, I'll punish myself with amphetamines and drugs and flip my car on this fucking Fort McMurray North on Highway 63.
Wait. Hold up. When did this happen?
That would be when Katrina was hitting the coast of New Orleans in 2006.
At that time, I was at a Christian camp that was praying very heavily for sins to be punished.
Wow.
I know. What awful people.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure all my sins got fucking punished on the Highway 63, motherfuckers.
Well, it wasn't about your sins. Like, the church was
no, but overall, when you put that energy out into the universe, that shit's going to happen.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, I've learned a lot. Maybe, like, in the way that we've done this podcast about you and your drugs, we need to do a podcast about me getting out of religiosity. Yeah. Because that's like escaping a fucking cult.
You legitimately did. So yeah, I flipped my. I had been up all weekend and not. This is the weekend after she left, which another weekend I had been up like all
Shannon?
weekend. No,
Heather. Before Shannon.
Before Shannon, yeah.
So this is before the worker that you started working, the sex worker that you started dating,
and then seeing, and then working with.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Heather relationship crashed hard, and that was just because we had done drugs together.
I was going to say, did Heather use?
Yeah, we did. We used together. And
this is not the Heather Hurst that we thank at the end of our podcast.
No.
This is a different Heather. We both have a lot of Heathers in our lives.
Yeah.
Shout out to all our Heather wives.
Anyway, so some of my personality dysfunction when I was on amphetamines was like, is this matriarchal narcissism a thing? When you're such
matriarchal, like
a
mother,
like you're such a dickhead.
Freudian shit.
Yeah, like Freudian shit, like all the nasty bullshit technical tricks there. Bullshit that you pull on your significant other comes back to how you treated your mom and all the revenge you took on your mom.
I call my mother once a week.
I try to call my mom once a month, and I text her once a week.
I just it's just I don't think that's.
Freud said it right. If it's not one thing, it's your mother. Oh, no, wait, that was Robin Williams.
That wasn't Freud.
That wasn't Freud. That's not one thing, it's
Freud
your
was
mother.
definitely into mothers. Like,
yeah, no,
if MILF porn existed when Freud was around, like, he would have been
like producing that shit. Anyway, so
DTF.
Yeah. The point being is that after the whole thing had broken down with Shannon, and I realized,
Heather.
Yes, with Heather, but there's a pattern that I noticed that with all of my adult relationships that I was only aware of the pattern and who I was at the end of the Shannon relationship.
Okay. That was the reflection.
That was the reflection. Because there was a crest, a drop, a crest, a drop, a crest.
And then the plummet.
And then the plummet.
What pushed you out of that relationship with Shannon?
My own actions, first of all.
Like you didn't hit her again?
No, but I cheated on her.
Okay. Now,
a lot of people can be like, blah, 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 she's a sex worker, you're not really cheating. Fuck that. I cheated on the woman I love.
That's kind of the argument that I wanted to bring up, because I was like, some people are going to be like, she was a sex worker, she was sleeping with other men, however, there's the communication, right? Yep. You were aware of what was going on, you were you were a party.
Yeah, I was privy. I was.
You were making financial gains
out of this
because you were her driver.
That's right.
You were her bouncer. You were not her pimp.
Nope.
Because that was not something attached to the stigma. But you were making financial gains out of this, and it was someone that you cared about. But it was different because
when Shannon went into the call, they would never get Shannon. They would always get.
Don't burn her name.
It's up to her. Not bad.
I might edit out that. I might throw in a bleep.
Fair enough.
Just because
3, 2. They would get her. They would get the worker. They would not get
Shannon. They would get
the worker.
Obesity.
Yeah.
Not obesity, but ABCDE. Obesity.
Yeah, they got what they thought they called for. Anyway, so that, basically I hurt Shannon because that's what I had done in previous relationships. When I felt wronged about something, you would reach back and you would hurt that person.
So this last cheating that led to you ending this relationship, or this relationship ending, were you doing that as an attack?
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
It was kind of a fuck you because you guys got into a fight.
I felt I wasn't being listened to about the job and doing things that we should be doing to be getting all of our monies and all of our livelihoods. So I felt as if this were a partnership, I'm being shat on, and my opinion didn't matter. It was very, very shitty of me.
So the way that you handled this was to kind of
go around to every studio and talk to all the girls and tell them how shitty Madam X was.
Okay.
And then at the last studio, I found someone who looked almost exactly like her. And then went through with half service. Okay.
Did you, how did this information, did you tell Shannon this?
Yeah. Well,
Like, you were the one that, like, broke it to her, like, hey, I did this.
Yeah, it was after the night that all this happened, that I went and did all these things, she was in a meeting with Madam X.
Because it sounds like almost you were, like, helping her out by shit-talking Madam X. You were kind of, like, trying to, like, be in her corner.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the night, it's like, I'm in her corner, now I'm in your pussy.
Yeah, but not actually. I didn't go for full service. Yeah. No, it was half service.
Fair enough. You're like, I'm in your mouth. Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever half service is.
I'm in your mouth so you can tell everybody out of your mouth. You know what I mean?
So did she go back and tell people?
Yeah. After it all came out of the wash. That I was I had cheated on her and stuff. There was actually a Facebook post that I deleted because she hacked my account and laid you know when...
Wait, Shannon hacked your account?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. I love seeing those. This morning... Oh, my God. This morning on Baseline Road. This morning on Baseline... Did you see this in the news?
No, I didn't.
Okay. I live just off of Baseline Road. Stalkers don't come and find me. I know we talked about gun control. I may or may not own a gun. I don't own a gun.
I brought one here. Fuck that.
No. On Baseline Road this morning, there was a spray-painted sign that said, "Goodbye, you cheating C-word," and then all the person's shit was on the lawn.
Oh.
And they'd, like, done it in big capitals. It was beautiful. And it was, like, all their shit was on the lawn. Total C-word drop. It made me laugh.
Well, for sure. And, that at least is, that's the public humiliation you can get over once. You know
it's just shaming. It's a shaming.
It's a shaming. But instead of, that you cheating cunt, maybe
Hey, I don't want to say that word. That's why I said C-word.
You have to bleep out working name anyway. Sorry, C-word.
Oh, no. Sorry, that's what it was. It just said cheating C.
Oh, right. Yes. Sorry.
I just showed Chris the photo. Stuntman Stu posted it on his Twitter.
Huh. Yeah, so if that happens, I get it, but...
You notice how they did like an outline and then filled it in with color?
Yeah, it was actually pretty nice artwork.
Like block letters.
Not gonna lie. It was like, hey, look at this neon. It was great.
I'm going to retweet that from our Daddy Issues podcast so you can hear it or look at... Oh, adult film star Jessica James passed away at the age of 43.
Jessica James?
Jessica James. You see a photo of her, you're like, yeah, I've totally done it to her before.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, no, and... Sorry, Mom.
Tweet that one out, too.
Nope. I have to go to my actual Twitter account, our Twitter account, out of my Twitter account. Sorry.
So, yeah, it was... After that, she got most of her money, and, I came back from all that, and then I went and picked her up, and she was like, I got all this money back, I had all these victories, and then I just felt like a complete dipshit. And we took a bunch of weeks off. We took a week off from working. And said we'd be coming back, and we took this windfall of cash, and we went to Vancouver, and this is probably right around my 10th year high school anniversary, graduation anniversary, and we went to Vancouver and picked up an ounce of crystal meth.
Oh shit!
With another couple who was also our dealers, and it was just a weekend from hell where I rented the van and we ended up having to wait for freaking our meth dealer, degenerate gambler. He was trying to gamble his way into...
Well, he was a meth dealer, so...
But also... No, he was a gambler first. 100%. He was more addicted to the slots and the lure of money than he was to, just being a dealer. You know what I mean? So... And I was Shannon and myself were funding this whole let's go down to
Vancouver
and pick up an ounce of meth and bring it back and flip it for a profit because there is a shortage of meth in Alberta.
Did that ounce of meth make it back to Alberta?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Yes, it did. And the half of
how much does an ounce of meth go for? Because I know an ounce of weed goes for between about $100, right?
We kind of probably got jacked up on the price, and I'm sure there was an overhead, but I'm pretty sure an ounce of meth for that time went up. I think we paid $5,000 for it.
$5,000 for an ounce of meth. How much does a gram of meth cost? I can't imagine.
Well, at that time, everything was exasperated because there was a shortage of it. So a gram of meth was doing $100.
But in Vancouver, a gram of meth wouldn't be doing $100
again,
because I lived in Vancouver back in 2005.
The whole trip cost us $5,000. The ounce of meth itself cost us $2,800. The car rentals, the hotel,
because that's $100 a gram, and that feels
that was the
for
thing.
me.
No, that's street at $100 a gram, right? So
So when I lived in Vancouver, I lived in a slum hotel at the corner of Payne and Hastings, and Hastings, called the Balmoral Hotel.
Yeah.
You just need to people Google the Balmoral Hotel Vancouver. There are articles about how this is the worst single room occupancy hotel in the entire country of Canada.
Wow.
Bed bugs, cockroaches, mice, scabies. We had one shower for 8 floors.
Christ almighty.
We had a bathtub at the end of every hall. At the end of our hall, a guy brewed meth in the bathtub. That was my introduction to meth, is we just had fucking smoke fumes coming down the hallway on a daily basis. I didn't know that I had any sort of addiction to amphetamines until I left Vancouver. I came home and I'm going through withdrawal symptoms where I would lose time. I would go into a shower at 8 in the morning knowing I had a class at 10:30 a.m.
Yeah.
And the next thing I know is I'm waking up in the tub and it's 2 p.m.
Wild. That's wild.
And that was my first month of university.
Yeah, fuck. That's super fucked. So we did this trip, cost us a lot of money. I didn't sleep the whole fucking trip. We fought to get onto it. Literally physically came to blows where I didn't hit her, but I put my hand in her face and pushed her away from me.
Okay.
And that was
That was the end?
No, that wasn't the end because she was like, oh, whatever. We drove back to Alberta and I call it my Le Mans because I think it was up for almost 48 hours and I didn't and I drove almost the whole thing. And as soon as we pulled in at Edson, I was just being really openly avert, nice to the other girl who was in the car and not
to Shannon?
And not to Shannon. I was being just degenerately a bad human being. Mm-hmm. And then she's all brought everything up in front of these two, which is super weird and awkward. And then when I was inside getting donuts and coffee, reflecting on how stupid I was being, they were like, we'll support you, get rid of this piece of shit, blah, blah, blah.
About you.
Yeah, about me. Which I get it. They're trying to woo the golden duck away.
But at the same time, you did introduce drugs to her. You had hit her.
Yeah.
Let's not sugarcoat it.
No.
You had physically assaulted her. You'd brought drugs into her life, not just drugs, but hardcore drugs into her life. You enabled her sex work, which is, I would argue, is not the worst of things to do, but at the same time,
pimping light.
It was pimping light. I think you're right. It was pimping light.
Pimping light.
You were making money off of her sex work, and you were not the one that was being put in the vulnerable situation that she was.
No.
So let's make this clear. You were kind of being, if we're going to say the C word in this episode, you were kind of being a cunt.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. No depth, no warmth.
So the opposite of the C word is what you were being.
I was being a super huge dick. I was being cold and stiff and just horrible. So yeah, I get why they were moving away, and then we came back and dropped them off, and they had made agreements with Shannon to pay the money back because it was all her money back that she boosted to this guy, and I'm sure she got paid back eventually, but who knows. Anyway, when we got back, I needed to sleep and talk about it, and I think I ended up getting maybe 8 hours of sleep, and then talk about everything that happened, and then through that conversation, even just the whole you talk about the day before. When the day before was 72 hours, you have to talk about that day before, and then the light sleep we had before that.
Which was a month before.
No, which was the light sleep, I mean 7 or 8 hours, the 7 8 hours sleep, where we decided to wake up and go and drive to Vancouver. That day was when I did all that and she fought for the money.
Okay.
Right.
So when did you leave? What was the catalyst to leaving her and stopping drugs? Because they were around the same time, right?
No. Well, she left and found another guy. She found a guy that was I said, if you ever break up or if everything happened, don't talk to this guy. And she went right to that guy, right? Just to be yeah, F you, right? And then I stayed in the apartment by myself for a while. And then my brother Carl came and got me. He's like, "You're not doing any good here. Come back to this house." Left. It was a year after that date that I was like, I had stopped using for a good 3.5 months.
And this was with Carl?
With Carl.
Okay.
And then I had like, oh, no, I can bring it back lightly because of the ghosts of where I was.
Yeah, so you were like, I can use this.
I can use this again. Because before Shannon, I was using it and I was living here and doing this. And then that was the slope there. And then it was almost a year after that I was like, yeah, no, I have to call the ball. It's never going to be what I had.
Okay.
Was
there like a catalyst to that? And I'm only saying this because we're at the hour mark, and I need us to get into like you getting to recovery and how that's impacted your parenting.
No, for sure.
Right?
The catalyst that really set it for me is like I took a vacation that was like I need to get away from Edmonton, just whatever it was. My sister Brianne had come down in February that year
to Ottawa,
to Edmonton from Ottawa. She came down and had been like, yeah, okay, let's. She's working with us, and then she's like, well, we need to take a vacation back home. I need to see the parents, blah blah blah. And I was like, yeah, I've never been to Ontario, and I've been working so hard for my brother for like literally no pay, but this trip. So we took this trip out east, and the time away and the different feel that I got from Ottawa, I was like, if there was any place I could make a break for something, I could do it here. Mm-hmm. And when we returned from that trip, and I just had felt all those past washes of emotions of Edmonton, of everything that was here, I was like, I enjoyed not feeling these things for like 14 days. I don't want to feel these things anymore. Okay. And it was like, let's go. And then I made it my objective to buy a plane ticket, and I set a date, and that was it.
So you bought a plane ticket, you set a date, you moved to Ontario. Did you move in with your sister?
No. My sister remained in Alberta with a significant other who she had met through kind of the meth circuit. And that was.
Is your sister using too?
She was.
She was at the time.
Yeah, she was.
But your sister was also kind of like the motivation for you to get out of it.
Yeah, no, well, no, I wouldn't necessarily my sister to leave. She was just there to like. I guess that would be. I guess sure.
Okay.
But like, I'd like to think my motivations came from myself. She kind of opened the door.
She opened the door.
There was a way we could go. You know what I mean?
You took that, and you ran with it.
Yeah.
So you moved to Ottawa.
Yeah.
What happened there?
September 26, 2009.
Did you smoke like meth before you got on the plane?
The day before.
The day before.
Yeah. So I was still feeling it when I was on the plane ride. So, and honestly, like I'd been using interactively before then. I just say I know for a fact 26th of September is the date because I know I didn't consume meth on that day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the first day that you have recollection of not consuming meth.
That's right.
You landed in Ottawa. Mm-hmm. Where did you go? What did you do?
My dad picked me up.
Your dad's Ottawa based?
Yeah. No, he was Edmonton based, but his second wife was from Ottawa, and after his own dealings with his own personal business, moved out to Ottawa in 98. So he'd been out here with my two sisters and my brother since then.
And when did your dad pass away?
2012.
2012. So you'd been here for about 4 years?
3.
3 years when your dad passed away. You'd had 3 years to really kind of reconnect with him? And
thank God for that.
Because when you heard that he passed away, you kicked your fridge.
Oh, man. I soccer balled my fridge so hard. I'm sure it was a rental, too. I feel bad about it. Although it's not the first time I had ever soccer balled a rental fridge. But
meth is a crazy drug.
Yeah, for sure. But, yeah, so when I initially come down, we stayed here, and when I got back home, I was like, yeah, I don't think I want to be around here anymore. Do you have room for me? He's like, of course, there's always going to be room for you here. And I will make it happen if you need a break. I want to be a part of that. And I was like, okay, I got my flight and everything. And I literally left Alberta with one suitcase full of clothes, my other suitcase full of tools, my cats, and that was about it.
And you're allergic to cats.
Well, I wasn't allergic to cats because I got them so young that I was actually imprinted on their dander type.
Okay.
Like, I grew with them. Now that they're a bit older and one's outside all the time and like constantly his dander is changing, I'm not good with.
So kind of speaking about this story is very reminiscent of something that happened to me when I was living in Ottawa. And I just want to bring this up because when I was living in Vancouver, at the Bible college I was going to, they wanted us to live incarnationally, which is why I was living in a slum hotel, because that idea is you're living with the people you're working with. And so we started working with this one guy who's a Benedictine monk who was also a professional chef. And then he had ended up with an opioid addiction and ended up on the streets. So he ended up still being a Benedictine monk through there. He was also very openly gay. But at this time, like, because I was with a right-wing evangelical church, like, you know, that was like the pray the gay away shit, right? Fuck. That'll come up in just a second. Just because my thing is, when I left, I told this guy, I was like, look, I know you're in a really shitty situation. This is not a situation that you want to be in. You ever end up in Ottawa, you give me a call and I will do my best to support you.
Right.
Right? He gives me a call January 6th, 2007. I had just gotten back to Ottawa from going to see my family in London for Christmas, getting ready to go back to university, and I get a phone call. He's like, hey man, you remember when you said if I ever came to Ottawa that there would be a place for me here? He's like, is that still true? I was like, absolutely, man. Thinking, I'm like, there's no way this guy's going to show up. He's like, I just landed at the Ottawa airport. I need to sober up.
Shit.
I'm on a fucking Greyhound. I'm on a Greyhound at like what would be the turnoff to Peterborough.
Oh, wow. So
I'm like, all right, man, I will be in Ottawa in like 4 hours. I need you to meet me at, and I told him where to meet me. And so I get to this place. He's there. A bunch of people that I'm in class in university happen to be there. They're like, hey, how are you? And there's this guy who's definitely a meth addict who's sitting across from me, kind of tweaking because like this is his first 24 hours clean, right? He comes and he moves in with me. I'm in a 1-bedroom apartment, and he lives with me for 3 years or 3 months. 3 months.
Right.
3 months. 3 months because I just started to date who's now my ex-wife at this time.
Right.
And so, like, you know, we got him hooked up at the job at McDonald's. We got him hooked up with a job at Tim Hortons. I got him hooked up with a job doing food services for the Salvation Army. And then he stepped out of a truck and shattered his ankle. Jesus. So he ended up being with me for so long. And a big part of that was I need to get away from these drugs. So when he was living with me, the only thing that I let him smoke was cigarettes. Yeah. And I was like, we didn't even allow alcohol in the house. He brought 2 bottles of wine for me as like a thank you gift, and they sat unopened until he moved out.
Nice.
And that was just one of those things where like, this was someone who was like reaching out for help and just like trying to get in, and then they slept on my couch for 3 months.
Wow. How's he doing now? Do you know?
You know what? He moved back to Vancouver. And when I said that he's flamboyantly gay, a big part was when he came. He's like, I need to avoid the gay district. So I told him, I was like, well, that's like Bank Street, and then he kind of resents me for saying that to him. So when he moved back to Vancouver, because what he did is he ended up getting his own apartment in the same building that I was in. He even asked me to co-sign on his lease, and I was like, he's doing really well. It's been 3 months. He's sober and all this shit.
Yeah.
He lived there for a month and a half, and then he fucking just left. Huh. He just went back to Vancouver, and he started using again. He got involved in what he calls a slave relationship, where he signed a slave contract to another couple. Amanda, my ex-wife, because he was living with me for the first 3 months of us dating. Amanda knew him, so we went out to Vancouver the next summer, and we went and saw him, and he took us out to he took me, Amanda, and her father. And this was the summer before I proposed to Amanda, right? Like I was going to Vancouver to ask her father's permission to marry her, and he took us out to this beautiful cafe. It was a beautiful cafe on Davie Street, which is the gay district of Vancouver.
I know where that is. Over in Davie.
It was fantastic. It was the best food I've ever eaten. But it was a drag restaurant, and my then what became my father-in-law was like, well, this is interesting. And he came over and he sat down, and then he explained his slave relationship to my future father-in-law. And I was like, oh my God. That was my experience. So, like, I'm glad that you had a better experience with your dad than he had with me.
Yeah, no.
Long story short, that took me like 5 minutes. I'm sorry.
That's all right. My first 48 hours in Ottawa were weird. Actually, my first week, I think I slept like 20 hours a week.
Okay.
20 hours a day.
20 hours a day.
I was like up for 4 hours.
Well, you've been awake for 4 months.
No, I wouldn't even go that way. As soon as the adrenaline dropped off and you're not producing your own adrenaline,
you're just going to sleep.
You're just going to sleep. And it wasn't until, I'd say about the 5th or 6th of October, maybe a week and a half later, that my dad's like, yo, we need to start renovating this bathroom, frame it all out. And he's like, I've already done he basically did the underground, and then he was like, do the finishes for me. And I had all my tools with me. So that bathroom and me kind of rebuilt ourselves together.
Okay.
Yeah. I poured my recovery into that bathroom.
Okay.
So
you took Ottawa as a serious chance to get clean.
Yeah.
Were there ever any temptations to go back to Edmonton?
Are there thoughts to go back to Edmonton, but temptations to go back? No. Okay. There was nobody saying, come back. Yeah, this was... No.
But a temptation can be a thought.
Oh, yeah, there was lots of those temptations, but in the first month or so, for sure. Not in the first couple of weeks, but in the first month, it was like, oh, I'm feeling better. This is fine. I think I can go back.
If you went back to Edmonton, would you still be using?
Yeah, had I gone back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you go back to Edmonton. You've done shows in Alberta.
Yeah, I've done shows at Yuck's, Fort Road, and a bunch of stuff in the mall.
And a bunch of Edmonton comedians like Adam Blank and Sterling Scott.
Yeah,
and
I know
Kathleen McGee's now in Edmonton.
Yeah, I know Kathleen's back in Edmonton.
Right?
She's from Edmonton. She's back in
Edmonton.
Edmonton.
So, you have some of these connections to Edmonton.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you handle that when you go back?
It's weird coming back with the pangs of the history. I'm glad the place has changed so much because that imprint is still there. And it's like an X when you go back to, you see an X. You're like, oh, look, you're you. And
you're reminded of the good times and not the bad times.
Yeah, and then, you've changed a bit. But I'm like, those bad times still make me feel this way, so I can't do it. You know what I mean? So that's how that one goes.
Did you go back to Edmonton before you met Amanda?
No.
No? So Amanda's your current wife.
Yep.
Current wife, hopefully, for the rest of your life.
Amanda's number one forever.
Yeah. Amanda's your wife.
Yeah.
It's got to take a lot for someone, because I having this conversation, it's got to take a lot for someone to be able to accept your past.
Yeah.
Right? It's got to take, I'm not just saying that as a friend, because as a friend, I've had no problem accepting you and then hearing about your past.
Somebody intimately,
but someone who's going to intimately want to raise a family with you and know everything about your history, right?
Yeah, as well as when you're even dating, know about who I was dating previously.
So how did you handle the next big relationship you were in after Shannon? Because you have not been in the same situation with Amanda that you were ever in with Shannon.
No, never. No. No, it was small moves. In my first 3 months in Ottawa, we technically didn't date. We just kind of saw each other.
How'd you meet her?
Through my sister Brienne.
Okay.
Yeah, during that time.
So she knew Brienne?
Yeah, they worked together at Quiznos in Ottawa.
Quiznos gives me diarrhea.
Oh,
it's the only place that gives me massive diarrhea. If I go to Quiznos tonight, I will be shitting liquid rain, chocolate rain, within 45 minutes.
That's hot.
You know what? I just need our listeners to know how my stomach works.
Poorly. Anyway.
That was a bourbon laugh. I'm sorry. It's been an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's all right. They knew each other from working together.
Okay.
Yeah. We say we met through Brie Harmony. So, yeah, that's that. And then we were kind of sort of seeing each other from when I got here. And then New Year's Eve 09, we kind of do we want to start dating officially? And we were like, yeah, we'll start dating officially.
Okay.
So I had 3 months of just kind of on my own.
And you had those 3 months to get sober.
Yeah.
And to focus on yourself, because we always say that when you're in recovery, you shouldn't be focusing on anyone other than yourself.
That was it, yeah.
So you had 3 months to really focus on yourself. your relationship changed because I've seen the way that you and Amanda interact.
Yeah.
I've never seen you and Shannon interact, but like I've seen the way that you and Amanda interact, and that's got the groundings for like a lifelong relationship.
Permanence, yeah, for sure.
How has all of this? I don't want to necessarily call it bullshit, but it's a lot of bullshit. How has all of this stuff kind of like impacted your ability to be a dad?
Overall, it's given me patience and understanding.
Okay.
I think I've made a piece of me in small form with all those shortcomings with it.
Okay.
And all the greatness within it. Everything that is within it. So how it's made me better, for sure, I think.
How are you going to talk about drugs with your kids?
With honesty. With almost the same conversation that we're having right now.
Okay, because like
maybe they can hear this conversation right now.
Well, your kids are 6 and 4, right?
I know, but maybe they. Who knows, man? Fucking not like. I don't mean right now, but maybe they can hear this.
They can hear it in the future.
And yeah,
because the thing is, like, there's gonna be a day when, like, because your son's 6, your daughter's 4, right?
3.
3. Sorry, 3.
Yeah, 4.
She's turning 4.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a day, because, like, I know, having worked in the high schools before, that, like, a lot of these substances get introduced and talked about by the age of 12.
Yeah.
There are some people that are not of the legal age to be out of booster seats by the time that we're talking about drugs, right, in schools, and about how to use them safely. So, like, are you going to tell your kids they can't use drugs? Well, how are you going to have this conversation?
I think I'm going to have this same conversation and the same style of conversation that I had with my younger brother Jeremy, because my younger brother Jeremy was my roommate through my recovery.
The one that I bought weed off of?
Yes.
Oh. Sorry, Jeremy.
But Jeremy listened. I never told Jeremy not to do anything.
Okay.
I simply told him, here's what this will do. You can go ahead and try that if you like. I'm not saying don't, but here's what's going to happen. And like, it's entirely up to you.
That's so. Before I left working as like, because I was an addictions counselor for an agency, right? Yeah. Now I'm a therapist, and I work with individuals for a lot of different reasons. But when I was working as an addiction counselor, I was working mostly with teenagers, and I created a curriculum for grades 7 and 8 in Ottawa. And that curriculum was about like the stages of change, the stages of use, what substance abuse looks like, and the difference between what is substance use versus substance abuse, right? Because the idea is not to demonize the use. If we demonize the use, and I say this from the church aspect where we were told you're not allowed to drink, you're not allowed to smoke, you're not allowed to do drugs, you're not allowed to have sex. And here's the thing, is I was the most repressed around drinking and drugs and smoking and sex, and to the point where suddenly when it's like presented to me, I don't know how to handle it. Right? Yeah. So like when I first started drinking, I was going overboard and I was getting drunk every time I drank. When I started smoking weed, it was like, holy fuck, this takes me to another element. When I started having sex, it was like, fucking A, right? Like, It was like all these secrets had been unlocked to me. And I'd wish that someone had taught me about moderation. Because going into that, and when I talk to Kate's got a completely different upbringing. Yeah. So when we go out for family events, I might drink a little bit more than her father, her brother. And she kind of like justifies it as well. He didn't really have this growing up. He doesn't really have that perspective of like what's acceptable and unacceptable. I'm like, if I'm being unacceptable, tell me I'm being unacceptable.
Tell me to slow my roll.
But at the same time, like, you know, I think that's an important thing, is to have that conversation where we're not condemning the user, but we're condemning the overuse. And condemning might even be a harsh word, where we're saying the overuse is going to lead to problems.
X plus Y is equal to Z. You know what I mean? And do you want Z?
I met one of my neighbors. I'm not going to say his name. I met my neighbor the other day who used to be a former CFL player.
Oh, cool.
Not Mark Hatfield. I'll say Mark Hatfield because he's a comedian. He talks about this bullshit. He used to play for Hamilton, and then he went and came and played for the Ottawa Rough Riders and played a year for the Ottawa Renegades. And he had to quit due to due to concussions.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we spent some time like talking about concussions, and he had mentioned how he got addicted to oxys.
Oh, no shit.
And he's like, I actually sit on a CFL board, advisory board, who's trying to push more THC and CBD into their oils and into their pills rather than the fucking OxyContin and the fentanyl that they're trying to prescribe for concussions when I was working. He's like, I had to quit because I was addicted to fentanyl. And he's like, and now I'm like, I take a THC pill, like I take a CBD pill at dinner, I take a THC pill in the evening.
Yeah.
Because he smelled me smoking a joint. And so he comes over, he's like, hey, what's that? I was like, this blueberry, you want to hit? He's like, no, I don't smoke it. I only take pills. And we got into this conversation, right?
No. It opens the door.
And I'm like, we're talking about a drug that is benefiting a lot of people and helping people deal with an addiction from other drugs.
Yeah.
So, like, when it comes to something like marijuana, like, I know with Maddie, I'm not going to be punitive, but I'm going to tell her how it impacts a developing brain, how it impacts
100%.
a developing body. In the same way that when I talked to grade 7 and 8s, it wasn't like, don't ever do this, but it was like hey, this is what addiction looks like. Yeah. This is what use looks like. Here's how use impacts a 12-year-old brain, or here's how use impacts a 13-year-old brain. You use when you feel it's appropriate, but just know, right? And so we shape the conversation to be around what does it actually do to you?
Yeah.
Right?
Let's see what's through this door. You know what I
mean? Let's make a deal with Wayne Brady. You are dressed like a meth addict. Now, do you want to choose door A, B, or C? Door A is meth addiction. Door B is, you know what, some weed consumption to help bite the edge.
Yeah.
And door C is a grand trip to Maui, but you're going to sell that for crack.
Yeah. Because you left meth alone. Yeah, no, sorry. No, it's...
Your kids are going to know that you were an addict.
100%.
Or are an addict. Like, let's not...
No, I'm recovered. Fuck that.
You're in recovery.
I'm a recovered addict.
All right.
I'm a recovered addict. You want to know why I'm a recovered addict? And here's my own definition for it, because I'm tired of people... How do I cross a finish line or I feel like I've achieved anything? I feel like I'm a recovered addict because I've now spent more time clean than I ever did use in the first place.
Fucking A!
So
that was a high five.
Yeah, that was a high five. That's it. You want to get your definition? Don't feel like it can't... It's a lifelong... engagement in recovery, but it is not a lifelong battle.
The way that I talk about it with my clients, and I've been talking about this like this with my clients since I started working as an addictions therapist, even to now, where I'm not even necessarily working mostly as an addictions therapist. My whole conversation is, when you run a marathon, if you run a marathon, and let's say you fall down at the 30-kilometer mark, do you go back to the beginning and start that marathon again? No. You fucking pick yourself up, you finish that marathon, and then, hey, I completed a marathon and I fell once.
And you might shit your pants on mile 40.
And that's the truth. And we know this because once when I was drunk at Freddie Jones's house, we drunk called Jenny Bewald. Do you remember Jenny Bewald?
I know Jenny Bewald.
She's now
a great lady.
I love Jenny.
Toronto.
She's so funny. She moved to Toronto. She's marrying Adrian Kronk. They're both very funny comedians.
And they're great people.
And she runs marathons. And so I was at like this house with Freddie Jones fell asleep, but it was like Johnny Novak,
okay,
Greg Stringer, myself, Nick Perron. I don't even know who else. There was other people there, and we called Jenny Bewald at like 2 a.m. and because she runs marathons, and we're like, when people run marathons, do they shit their pants? That was the only question we had for her.
Okay,
and she said sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes it happens.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, you don't go back to the beginning. You end the marathon and you say, yeah, I ran 42 kilometers and I fell twice.
Yeah.
Because, you know what, you still fucking completed a marathon.
That's exactly it. Right?
So when I talk to people who are going through drug addiction issues or substance abuse disorders, and I'm like, hey, when you relapse, you say the word relapse and you go back to day one. That's not very motivating, is it?
No.
No, because like you've just done 150 days and now you gotta go back to day one. No, today is day 151.
Yeah.
And you've slipped up once. You've fallen once.
Yeah.
You get to 350 days. You've done 350 days and you've fallen once, and then if you want to redo it and say, I've done 200 days where I haven't fallen, you can fucking do that. But if you've slipped, don't say you relapsed, because it's all psychological.
Exactly. That statement is defeatist, and it's meant to drive inspiration through shame, and you'll never get inspiration through shame.
Yeah. Now, this minisode is now longer than some of our full-length episodes. So we have to end this soon. But I really want last words to go to Chris. Chris, you are a recovered drug addict. You are a father of two. You are a husband to an amazing spouse. You are an ex to a sex worker who has had their ups and downs. You are a brother to brothers and sisters who have also had substance abuse issues. Our listeners are not likely in the same situation you have been.
No.
All right?
Definitely.
Our listeners are probably people that their amount of drug use is confined to drinking alcohol, maybe smoking a bit of weed or nicotine. How do we justify this use, and how do we talk about it with our kids?
I can't really ever justify the use, but you can talk about with your kids just as easily as just informing them about everything. To really justify the use is to like kind of understand why you were there in the first place.
Okay, so we're not justifying the use at all,
No.
but we're sharing life stories.
Yeah.
We're sharing, and we're being open about it, right?
That's it.
Like, if your kid is old enough to be able to experience Star Wars Episode 1, 2, and 3,
then you should be having these conversations immediately. You should have had these already, but like, and if you didn't have a basis to have these conversations with, just inform them.
here's the thing. If you are struggling on having these conversations with your kids, reach out to us.
That's it.
We're not gonna fucking like tell you how to do it. We're not gonna say like put your kid on Skype and let's talk to him.
Yeah.
Let's have a conversation, right? Because like this is a conversation that we can't close. This is not a closed-ended conversation. Substance use is still a part of our lives.
Yep.
Substance abuse is still a part of our lives, because there's times where I've seen you drunk and there's times that you've seen me drunk.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And we have kids. And this is still going to happen. And we're going to have these conversations around how do we talk to our kids about this. You know who I'd love to have on this podcast someday?
Who's that?
Gabber Mate. Gabber Mate. He's a doctor out in Vancouver in the downtown east side.
Oh.
He's worked a lot with the homeless and the drug, like those that like are addicted to substances.
Yeah.
He's worked a lot with sex workers there. In the realm of Hungry Ghosts.
Okay.
Is one of the best reads you can have about substance use in Canada.
Cool. Ghosts because it's scary cold in Canada.
It's not about that though.
No, I get that.
But at the same time, like, you know, like let's have these conversations. So we don't have the answers, but we have the experience between the two of us being a former drug addict and being a kind of a current / former addiction therapist. If you have questions or concerns, please reach out to us. Like, let's talk about it on air.
Yeah, man. Bring it on out. Bring it on out.
Email us at wegotdaddyissues@gmail.com.
Like us on Facebook at Daddy Issues with Champ in Kingsbury.
You can always contact us on Instagram at wegotdaddyissues.
And, of course, Facebook.
Twitter.
The one I'm never on. At Daddy...
No. Get it right. You're always the one that fucks this one up.
You're right.
At We Got Dad Issues.
We got Daddy.
Because normally it's We Got Daddy Issues, but they had a 2-character cap that we were over, so
we had to shorten.
At We Got Dad Issues. Like,
We Got Dad
let
Issues.
us know how you talk to your kids about substances, because everybody has a different route. Like, my parents, for me, they're zero.
Yeah.
I was raised in a family where you did not drink, you did not use drugs. My parents come up, we put the booze away. My marijuana goes up onto a shelf. It stays away because I was raised the way that alcohol.
They don't want to see it.
They don't want to see it. They don't want to know about it. They think that it is wrong. I have a lot of church friends who believe that it's wrong. I personally believe that everything is okay in moderation, but you have to know where moderation kind of lies for you.
Yeah, know thyself.
Know thyself. For you, you know where your moderation lies. You are a former addict.
Yep.
You are a current substance user.
Yep.
But most of us are.
Yeah, 100%.
So let us know your stories. Fill us in on your details. If you want us to kind of like talk about your situation on air, we don't need to
tell us about that too. Let us know.
But we don't need to share your information, right? Like you can send us an email.
100% anonymous.
And we can just say, we had a dad or a mom in this situation, from our two perspectives, this is what we see. We would encourage you that if you are in need of assistance, please reach out. Reach out to your community health centers. Reach out to your family doctors. Reach out to, just Google drug addiction and the city you live in. In Ottawa, we have Rita Wood Addiction and Family Services. Yep. Where I used to work, we have Serenity Renewal for Families. We've had the Dave Smith Center.
All really great places, man.
All great places. We got Maison Fraternité. Yep. We also have a lot of great private practice counselors.
Reach out, man. Just reach out.
And a lot of times private practice counselors, myself being one, we will work within your budget. If you come to us and say, I can't afford your $130 an hour, you tell us what you can afford, and we normally work within it. Well, to a point.
Set a limit, play within it.
To a point. Set a limit, play within it. I have a point. I have a point limit.
Yeah.
Where if it's
same with me with contracting. I don't get out of bed.
And for me, it goes if you can't afford this, you're going to most benefit from Rita Wood or from Dave Smith or from a community health center.
Also, especially shout out if you're having addictions things, but I'd just like to touch back on the sex worker thing, and there needs to be a lot of work done in Canada about that, and let us all work together on opening that conversation as well.
And I really feel like our election in October is going to have a big say in what that looks like. Yeah. Here's the thing is treat human lives over the value of cents and dollars. We're not ever going to tell you who to vote for.
But just do that.
But you have to remember that there's one side that will argue to put more money in your pocket at the cost of human lives. So. And I look at this and go, I can afford to be taxed a little bit higher to make sure that everybody has what they need. And I feel like that's our civic duty as humans to make sure that other humans are not faltering. I think that's part of the reason why we started this podcast too, is because I didn't know how to be a dad, and there are other people out there that don't know how to be a dad. You know who we need to have on this podcast?
Who's that?
Al Babcock.
Yeah, for sure.
He's having a kid now.
Yeah, man.
We'll talk about him later.
We'll talk to him later. Thank you so much for listening.
Guys, you have been fantastic. Like us, love us, share us, rate us. Do what you need to do. Please, let us know your stories. We want to know your stories. I hope that you have laughed your asses off this episode, because I have laughed my ass off so much to the point where I need a new ass.
That's a weird ass.
Laters.